Welcome YouTube customer. Some Universe or Unidata customer want to retrieve Universe or Unidata using SQL Server, Link Server. How can you do this? So they have multiple you can retrieve data from YouTube server. One way I will show you using the basic program. On YouTube we call the basic program. On SQL Server we call the store procedure. So you need to create a one subroutine on Universe. Then we want to using SQL Server OPENQUERY statement to retrieve data from Universe subroutine. Also you can use in OPENQUERY statement. I will show you in this demo. So from beginning, we want to create a basic program called FINDSTATE. So here is the sample program. So here's the FINDSTATE subroutine based on the state code. So run the statement, then return the result set. Before you can call this subroutine, we can create another program to test it. So the next one, you will using BP.call FINDSTATE. So if you try to run it, basically it's using the BCI code to call the FINDSTATE subroutine. So I can run it, run BP.call FINDSTATE. So you can input any kind of code like a CO, CA. So for example, I put the CO. So you return the state name called Colorado. Same idea, we can call it from SQL Server Link Server. So before you want to using the Link Server, you need to using 64-bit U2 ODBC client. For my testing, SQL Server is 64-bit, so you must be create 64-bit U2 ODBC System Dsn. On previous, we have already old 32-bit ODB, but it's only for 32-bit. So ODB driver is not working with the Link Server anymore. So next, we need to set up the System Dsn. So first, you need to check up the config file. For example, here I using the local UV. So inside the local UV, create a UCI config file called local UV. Then after you have UCI file, then we need to create the Dsn file. So Dsn, you can create the System Dsn. For example, I using this one. I can create another one. So for example, I can use in 64-bit driver. So I create a new. For example, I can call test UV. So inside here, I can choose local UV. Then database, I connect to hs.sales for Universe. So username, password. So I save the password and test it. So it's successful. I create the test_UV. So it's okay. So I can save it, called test_UV. So that's the System Dsn I created. After I create the System Dsn, then I can create the Link Server. So I already start Microsoft SQL Server Management Studios. After you connect to the SQL Server, I using local server, so it's to connect to my local machine. Then inside the server object, they have a link server option. So inside here, I can right-click, create a new server. So for the link server, you can create the name. So right now for my testing, I create called UV U2 ODBC 64-bit. Then the option you will see need to select the provider is for ODBC. So for the provider name, product name, it doesn't matter. So basically I can use the same name. But data source is very important. Data source name must be the same name created in the 64-bit System Dsn. So for my testing called test UV, it's called test UV, and location basically is the database name. So it will be HS.sales. So that's the definition for general. For the security, because it's a remote, so it's a remote setting. So you need to set up, connect to my machine. So you need to set up the connection to my machine username password. So next will be very important is server option. Because you try to use an RPC, so two parameter is important to set. Called RPC must be set to true. Another called RPC out is set to choose. So you can transfer the parameters. So after you set it, so you set the new link server. You can span it to see this. So you can see the table, you can see the view. So it's no schema name because HS.sales no schema name. But if you have some additional create a table on the Universe global catalog, you will see on this machine. So right now they have some setting. I don't have anything for the global table set up on Universe server, so you don't see it. So after you set it, then next you can try to test the OPENQUERY statement. So you have a multiple option to run the command. Before you want to run it, make sure it's running is 64-bit. So normally I will always run this command for first time to see it's the 64-bit because everything set up is 64. So you must be run on SQL Server version is 64-bit version. The next command after you set it, so we can run the simple OPENQUERY to return the result back. So you see that's the OPENQUERY's syntax using the link server name, then the SQL statement. So you can put any kind of statement, for example, like a customer. So you will get the different result back. Next, using another way to run the SQL statement using the link server called add link server syntax. They have several different ways to run it. So that's another way to run it. So you can get the syntax, same thing like an OPENQUERY. When you try to call the subroutine, you can using this command, using the, we just create the UV_U2 ODBC 64-bit link server to return the data back. So you will see we will based on the CO code to return the data back. Another way we can define the variable also can get the same kind of information back. This one I using the CA, so you will see the CA California name back. So you will see the state name will be California. So all based on your application, so you can create a store procedure on the SQL Server side to retrieve the data back, just like a SQL Server store procedure.